Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107 AM 1240. Well, the General Assembly is in session. This is an important portion of our legislative calendar because it's the beginning of the biennium, and it's the time when the state's budget is set. So we've asked our guest this afternoon, Senator Norman Sanderson, to join us to just chat about what took place today, but also an interesting story that I did read, and that has to do with the funding of our schools in North Carolina. So that, and of course, as I just shared with the audience, Senator, apparently the Democrats have announced that they are going to expand, well, their plan is to promote the expansion of Medicaid. I'm interested in what's the future of that effort. And so with that, Senator Norm Sanderson joining us. Senator, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Lockwood. It's a pleasure to be with you and all of our folks down there in Carteret County and Pamlico and Craven.
You know, I want to go straight, and I appreciate your availability, too, by the way. I know it's been a busy day. Session began, what, at noon today? I know that you've been there for several days, but, I mean, the official convening of the General Assembly was at noon today?
Yes, sir. We gavel back in at 12 o'clock.
And what happens when you do that? Is it pretty much just, I say, perfunctory and ceremonial, or was there action as opposed to, as I'm reading from the AP story, apparently there were some bills introduced. There were some bills introduced, and of course you really have to wait for the actual start of the biennium or the new session in order to file legislation, and so that was in the hands of the clerk's office earlier this morning, and so at 12 o'clock I'm sure it was filed, and in fact, we'll start tomorrow having some rules committee meetings to move some of this legislation along quickly. All right, and of course, it's a grueling period when you're talking about budget issues, and I know that, I kid you and your cohort, Pat McElraft in Carteret County, about this and others, about the fact that Michael Speciale, for example, that this is a part-time job, yet you spend a lot of time there in Raleigh, and I guess basically getting prepped for the initiation of the session as it began today. First question on this issue of Medicaid expansion. What's the procedure? Of course, as we're seeing that the Democrats want to expand Medicaid, something that the previous General Assemblies have been rather hesitant about doing. But is there, other than just announcing they wanted to expand it, was there any justification, any kind of information provided that would promote this, or is it just, if you will, for optics? Well, I just think it's for optics reasons. You know, I know that, you know, there are folks on both sides of this issue. The folks on the side for expansion has been touting over the last several years, you know, how much more revenue this would bring into North Carolina, and you know, what it would do for folks who are kind of caught in the cracks that that are not, they either can't afford medical premiums or to go to the doctor, or you know, they make too much to be able to qualify for some of the other programs. And so Medicaid seems to be a catch-all for those folks. I think at last count it was about 500,000 additional folks in North Carolina. But you know, as far as I know, and we briefly discussed this yesterday, as far as I know, the opinion of the Senate really hasn't changed very much as far as going forward, the cost that this would be to the citizens of North Carolina. And it does other things too, Lockwood. It also decreases the amount of available folks, that their options to go to various doctors. There's a lot of doctors that have even stopped taking Medicaid patients. Right. And the other thing that really has concerned us from the very start is that when a survey was taken at who we're trying to serve, you know, Medicaid was originally set up to serve the very young and the very old. Right. And it has developed into a catch-all basket that serves a lot of folks. The polls that we saw said that upwards of 75% of these 500,000 folks are childless, working age adults
who, for whatever reason are not employed at this time, and, they want those folks to qualify. And so, they have no children, they have no dependents. All they need to do is get a job, and if that's possible, and
right.
You put that together with the fact that we're at the lowest unemployment rate that we've been in 15 years.
Yes.
And so we have a lot more. This is one of the few times that I've seen it since I've been in the General Assembly, is that we have actually more job openings than we do people to fill them.
Right.
And so I've always been an advocate of helping people when they need help, but I don't believe in giving people a free ride when they're able to help themselves. And so, we just need to try and help these folks get employment so that they can provide through employers or privately their own insurance for medical services, and do it that way instead of the state taking this on. And I just do not think that in the outlying years that we're going to be able to afford this. The federal government makes promises now. They'll pay this amount of it if the state will pay this amount, and this is what you will get. But there's some other states right now that are facing some very critical budget issues because they went along with the Medicaid expansion in the early years, and now they are really having to search to even try to find the money to deliver on some of what they promised, not even all of what they promised.
Right, and of course that is the other aspect of this, and we'll chat about this at greater length, I'm confident, and that is not just the immediate benefits or expenses, but the long-term benefits and expenses. And how do you, by the way, and this is a rhetorical question, but how do you get folks off an emergency process? And that's really what a Medicaid is about. It's an emergency alternative, if you will. And have we seen any reduction? Is there, and again, this is rhetorical, but I think this is a topic we'll be talking about in the weeks and months ahead. Senator Norm Sanderson with us this afternoon. We're talking with him about the opening of the legislature, and following our conversation, Senator, we're going to be airing an interview I did yesterday with Pat McElraft, who was there in Raleigh in advance of the opening, and I want to re-air it because we had to shorten it, and I want to give her the opportunity to share her experiences there. But in the process, I did see, and I know that you attended a program on school funding, and they're kind of tied, these two items. I want you to chat about this for a moment, if you will. This coming from Senator Phil Berger's office, North Carolina General Assembly. Senators announce a $2.3 billion school construction maintenance funding plan. First off, is this part of the existing bond referendum that North Carolina has passed, or is this a new bond referendum on our construction programs?
This is the Senate's alternative plan for funding school growth and not have to borrow $1.9 billion to do it. This is part of the process that we have been really championing for the last few years, and that's a pay-as-you-go process. This plan, and it's a wonderful plan. When it was presented today to the press, I think about the most important question that I heard from one of the press members, and I think it was from AP, said, well, who do you think, who wouldn't be excited about this plan? Because it provides more money than the bond will. It will come at increments of times when we feel that the major need for construction or improvement will be needed in this state, and it saves us over $1 billion in interest as to what the bond will cost us to borrow, 1.9. We'll end up repaying probably $3 billion to borrow $1.9 billion. Mm-hmm. And so, if we can do it without doing that, I think the Senate is on board with this. I know that Speaker of the House, Speaker Moore, has kind of sided with the governor, and they've had some state meetings in places touting this bond. But you know what? Anybody, including state government, that can pay for things as they go and not have to borrow money, never knowing what the future is going to bring, I think is a lot smarter. And our state treasurer is thrilled that we're not going to be borrowing $1.9 billion on top of what we already owe. And, oh, by the way, this plan will not only pay for school construction, it will also help us to pay down the existing debt at a quicker rate. And as we pay down the existing debt, there will be more money available for school projects. It will not only be for, I think we put this on a three-tiered level. 1/3 of the extra money will go through K-12. Mm-hmm. It will meet capital needs. It can be used for security purposes, for repairs, and even in the lower grades in K-12, it can help these schools who have problems with the reduction in class sizes in K through 3. One of the big pushbacks was that, they didn't have the room to create other classes. This is going to help them get those classrooms. 1/3 of it will go to the community college and the UNC system for the same kind of improvements, capital needs. And what we got to understand, and the other third will go to other buildings owned by the state of North Carolina that are also, lacking in some upkeep and maintenance over the years. And so, what we really want to do here is to do this. We want to be good stewards, but this is going to be done by, and this is not new money. This is not going to have any tax increases. It's going to be money that we are going to take. We already take 4% of the general fund tax revenue and put it in the general fund balance, but we'll be taking another 0.5% of the revenue or the excess revenue that comes into the state of North Carolina every year, and we're going to put that in this fund. And I have the charts here. I haven't studied them very well, but there comes a time when you've got your bond money. It starts out, gives people a bunch of money up front, which is not a great idea in some cases, is to give people a huge pot of money at one time and expect them to spend it in the very appropriate manner. But this is going to give them money at very crucial times. This will not supplant any of the lottery money that already goes to school construction. Wow. And by the way, we're trying to increase that and get that back up to the level it was years ago before before there was a cap put on how much of that money could go. And so, what people should understand is that capital needs are truly, really not the responsibility of the state, other than the UNC system and some of our other buildings. Capital needs are local money supposed to come for schools from the commissioners, and for the community colleges also have to provide this kind of money for capital improvement or capital needs.
With that said, and I just want to make mention of this, I know that we're looking at a horrible outcome for the 2018-2019 tax revenue for the year. It looks like we're going to have to deal with a $188 million surplus. I
know a lot of states that would like to have that
a surplus.
Problem.
Yeah, this is important, Senator, and again, Senator Norm Sanderson with us this afternoon. We really do expect our elected officials to be responsible when it comes to finances and fundings. And yes, I appreciate the fact that I want my building built larger and better, et cetera. But at the same time, it's the source of the revenue, and the source of the revenue is through taxes. And of course, that means that I and you have to step up and pay more, as does everyone else listening to this program today. This is a fabulous story, and what impresses me, and I want to move on very quickly to the program on how we establish funding for schools as well, but very quickly, the important aspect of this is happening right at the opening of the legislative session. It sounds to me like there's been a lot of work put into preparatory studies and so forth, if you're giving these kind of reports as we convene the start of the new legislative session.
Well, it is, and our feeling was, Lockwood, that we had to get out in front of this, because the longer we allow the governor and others to really go out and support of the bond money, then it's hard, because once people hear that and say, oh, yeah, we borrow money to build the schools or maintain schools and build new schools now, and but at the same time, they don't understand exactly how the funding process up here works. We pay for funding of schools, and what we do in 2017 we created what's called the State Capital and Infrastructure Fund, which can be used for state-owned facilities and the UNC system. And the money, where we get that money is 1/4 of the unreserved general fund balance remaining at the end of each fiscal year. At each fiscal year, we have a certain amount of money left over that we haven't spent. We take 1/4 of that. We take 4% of the net general fund tax revenue that comes in all during the year. We take the interest on any deposits that we have on fund balances and any additional appropriations that we want to make to this fund. We put that in there. Right now, 70% of that money, $700 million, goes toward debt service each year in the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
If you could take that $700 million that we're paying financial institutions for debt service and apply that on a yearly basis to school needs and other state-owned facility needs, we would have some of the most modern, up-to-date buildings and anywhere in the United States. And so that's our plan. Let's do something. We're going to add another 0.25% of the general fund revenue to this, along with these other ones, and that is what is going to give us the money we need to pay down the debt and to build the schools and to help our counties out, because we know that a lot of them are in a financial situation now, too.
Absolutely. Senator Norm Sanderson with us this evening here on Viewpoints. Stay with us. We're going to wrap things up here in just a moment here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station FM 107 AM 1240.